Hello and welcome to another episode of the Aftershock with Jamon Moore and Alex Morgan. I'm Phil Leyva, and we are here after a 2-1 victory against the Houston Dynamo for the San Jose Earthquakes. And that's 3 more points, guys, on the board for the team. A pretty exciting match in a lot of ways. 3 penalties scored, 2 for the Quakes, obviously, and 1 for the Houston Dynamo, both scored by Christian Espinoza, and 1 perhaps pretty controversial for Houston there. Let's go ahead and get into our initial thoughts after the match here. Jamon, I'm going to kick it over to you first. What do you think?
Yeah, I think all 3 are a little controversial, to be quite honest. The first one, I think, was more correct. Like, it's a tough situation to go like, hey, there's a cross. It hits a guy's hand. That hand is out from the body and not give a penalty in that situation. I think there's a world in which probably in some games that's not always going to get called 100% of the time. But I think it's correct this time. Both of those fouls, though, those were really soft. But I would say at least consistency in the end wins out. So if you're going to call it on one, you got to call it on the other. And give credit to the officiating team for at least the consistency.
The thing is, though, Jamon, go ahead.
I was going to say, besides that, it was a fairly even game. The Quakes got off a few more shots, not really on target. The XG is going to look a little bit better, but they're still not scoring from open play, and I think we're going to definitely talk about that.
All right, Alex, what do you think?
Well, I think they could have skipped the 90 minutes and gone straight to a penalty shootout. That would have been just as entertaining, gotten it done with. Everyone can go home happy. Look, I think that 2 of them were obvious penalties. I think both San Jose's penalties were pretty obvious. I don't think there's a world in which you don't call a handball. With these new rules, I think that's getting called handball every single time with his hand out, the crossing in his hand. I also think that the second penalty, the Cade Cowell penalty, was very clear and obvious. And if Cade Cowell had dove, it would have been called in real time, 100%, not even reviewed. But the fact that Cade Cowell stayed on his feet, the fact that he is a bulldozer, is why there was some doubt about whether that was a penalty. The only one I think that was I was a little more skeptical of was the Houston Dynamo penalty. But at this point, I don't think there's any point in getting caught up over that because San Jose got a really important victory, and I think they deserved it. You see Jamiro Monteiro back in the starting lineup after 2 games out, 1 with a red card suspension, 1 international duty, and you can tell the difference when he's back. From the second minute, he played a through ball in behind for Cade Cowell, got a cut back. Jackson Ewell got a shot from the middle of the box. That was San Jose's best chance from open play. 2 minutes in, you could already tell Jamiro Monteiro was making a difference in the final third, threading those balls in behind. And that's why San Jose got in those positions to win those penalties. That's the reason that they were able to win tonight is Jamiro Monteiro back in the middle. You have some questions about some other players in the final third. We're probably going to talk a little bit about Jeremy Ebobisse looking a little more lost, a little less decisive than he has in the past. But it was enough for the Quakes tonight at home.
Okay, well, I want to talk about that Cade Cowell penalty a little bit more because you could tell from the very beginning of the buildup of that play that Cade was looking for the ball on the left side, right? He was calling for it before it even came through the midfield when it was getting swinged over to the right side. And he had the intent to get into the box. Like, he started charging down, and you could see that he wanted to make something happen. I think that a more experienced player probably would have gone down on that penalty call there, or the prospective penalty call there, as you had mentioned, Alex. But I think the intent was there, and I wanted to use Cade Cowell as kind of like a launching point here as we start to talk about the offensive play from the Earthquakes, because he is one of the more controversial figures for this team. And I just wanted to see what you guys thought. Is Cade, should he continue to be holding the starting spot considering his performance tonight? I mean, he had some decent moments. He had a few good touches. He obviously created a couple of opportunities for the Quakes to score. And yet we're still seeing a little bit of that bullish play where he's kind of just crashing right into the defenders, right? We saw that a couple times tonight as well. But the chance that the penalty that was called on that opportunity, he showed a lot of initiative to actually get something done when the team really needed a goal. They really needed to get ahead in this match. So my question to you guys is Cade, should he continue to get this starting spot? Because I think perhaps we're starting to see an inkling of maybe what Luchi is seeing in training and what he is expecting to see Cade do with the one thing that you had mentioned last week, or without the one thing that you had mentioned last week, Alex, which is not scoring goals and not getting assists. So perhaps we'll start with you first, Alex. What do you think? Is Cade the right guy for the position?
On the basis of this performance, Cade Cowell is the right guy to be starting on the left wing. Benji Kikanovic got in late in the game, but he still looks like he lacks a little bit of confidence. Even these simple touches that he should be making, he's misplaying. He looks like he's not really sure where his head's at. It is platinum blonde, so that is saying something. There is a change in terms of the hair, and that's our sartorial discussion of the night. I checked that box early in the show.
I was going to ask about that.
We can circle back to that later. I'm sure there's more discussion on that front. So if you need a reason to stick around to the end of the show, we'll come back to the Benji Kikanovic haircut. But look, Cade Cowell was good tonight. He was making dangerous runs, and he was getting the ball from Jamiro Monteiro out wide and crossing it in and putting in dangerous balls. And there are one or two chances where you think he could have sorted out his feet and put a shot on target. But this was his first goal contribution, I think, of the season to win that penalty. And so I think it was a promising night from him. And if he can continue to make contributions like that, he's got the starting spot on lock.
Oh, Jamon, first question. Do you
Well,
like the bleached haircut from Benji Kikanovic? That's the first question before you get into your analysis.
Sure.
The Eminem era. If you
look, whatever right now gets people over the hump. If Cade's got to shave the mustache, if Benji's got,
he did, and in solidarity, so did I. What was
exactly? If you did too.
Look,
and if Benji's got to do the platinum blonde, whatever gives the guys confidence.
Jamon, the hair is so white and so platinum blonde, it almost looks like your head.
I know.
Oh my!
See, I just how in style am I? Right. That's what matters. Look, I'm not going to go so far as to say Cade was good. I'm going to say that he had 2 or 3 good moments. There was in the where he behind. Should have been able to get on with. And there, he drew the penalty tonight. Other than that, I can't really think of like really good moments. What I did like is that he was tracking back defensively. There were a couple times where he was needed on the left side of the box to be able to make clearances, and he did. Mm-hmm. And so it's good to see that, he's not just that attacking island. He's still a bit of an attacking island, but at least he's also getting back and playing defense and helping connect and be able to get out of trouble. And so that is a step forward a bit for me. And let's be fair, Benji comes in, it's a 2-1 lead. His job in that case is to play defense. It's not to try to create a third goal. So I don't really think this is the right game to gauge, Benji versus Cade on. Should Cade get another run out at this point? Probably, because there's not a good reason not to run him out. But by the way, Aseni Buddha looked fantastic for Quakes 2 last week and an attacking mid position. I still want to see a little bit more Aseni Buddha than in the 85th minute at a striker position, just chasing down defender. A little bit more Aseni Buddha than that.
I was like, are we watching the same match?
Yeah. Quakes 2 had a really nice goal and an assist in that game.
Yeah. What did really fantastic for Quakes 2 translate? Does that translate to mediocre for San Jose starting team? Because that's what it looked like tonight in those 5 minutes.
Hey, look, there's only one team right now. There's only one team right now that is scoring open play goals between the two teams, and it's Quakes 2. So maybe they're doing something right that the Quakes can learn from.
Interesting. Hey, the other thing I wanted to talk about was Paul Marie over there on the left side as well, because he did cover a lot of ground and allowed for Cade to kind of go into the middle of the pitch and try to find places to be effective in the offense as well. And I think last week we had talked a bit about how surprised. Well, I had spoken about how surprised I was that Paul Marie into the 83rd minute was still running full sprint and looked to be, have full stamina through 90. And I saw a lot of that tonight. And I actually saw a lot of that on the other side of the field too with Carlos Capo. But Paul Marie, Guys, I mean, is he have this position on lockdown at this point, or are we going to see a little bit more of Trauco? Alex, do you think that maybe there's some controversy there in the fullback positions?
I don't think there's any controversy. The Quakes have 3 good fullback options, and they're going to need to use all of them throughout the course of the season. And tonight, it was Paul Marie who got the call at left back, and he did really, really well. He had one of the most, I think, beautiful, gorgeous passes of the night with that long ball over the top for Christian Espinosa. He was almost able to get in behind the keeper and convert it. John Jay is correct. Paul Marie has been one of their most consistent players this season on both sides of the ball, not only offensively, which is with his passing contributions, with his connection with Cade Cowell on the left, but also defensively and the willingness to track back and physically go toe-to-toe with the Houston Dynamo tonight. He's not a physically imposing player. Having stood next to him and interviewed him, you'd think, well, maybe I could beat him in a shoulder challenge here. Maybe I could get up and beat him to a header. But he puts 200% of himself into every one of those challenges and is able to come out on top in those 50-50 balls. So he's able to hold his own and physically in those games. And he's been fantastic. One of the most consistent Quakes players this season, and he was good again tonight. And look here, I have no qualms about how Luchi Gonzalez is handling the fullback situation. All 3 of them will be needed, and all 3 of them will be used.
Yeah, and Jamon, I'm actually curious about what you think about that too, considering Trauco is on the bench, and we have Paul Marie starting over there on that side, Carlos Acapa on the other side. I mean, is this going to be – it looks like we're going over to the press conference.
No,
we're not going over to the press conference.
I just needed to get it there so it's ready to go. My bad. I didn't do it earlier.
No, that's good. That's good. So your thoughts on Paul Marie, basically?
Yeah, I agree with the comment. I think he has been one of the more consistent players. And obviously when Trauco is arriving later in the week and is not able to be with the team all week long to prepare for the opponent, it makes complete sense after Paul Marie's last game and how well he did on Bernadette to give him another run out, give him another opportunity. So, I think it was the right thing to do. Close the door. Close the door.
And Jamon, the first time I've thought tonight is if Paul Marie were 3, 4, 5 years younger, you think he could be a guy who'd be on the radar for some Eredivisie, for some League One teams in Europe? Because I think he's playing the ceiling that he has is getting close to what Marcos Lopez was able to show. And Marcos Lopez is succeeding. He's doing exceedingly well right now with Feyenoord in the Eredivisie. Paul Marie is a guy who I could see having success in Europe. If he chose to go to France, I think he could have a good run. I think he'd be able to find success in a lower level League One team in France. And that's been in the back of my head, given how strong Paul Marie has been. And that is not something I thought 2-3 years ago I would ever say on the show.
Let's go to Luchi.
Good evening, everyone. Let's begin with our press conference tonight with Luchi Gonzalez. Let's take a first question from Alex Morgan.
Hi, Luchi. Thank you for joining us, and congratulations on the victory tonight. 2 penalty goals gets you over the line. Maybe not as many chances as you would have liked from open play. What did you think of the attack now that Jamiro Monteiro is back? Creating more chances, it looks like, but maybe not being able to convert the last ball as much as you'd like.
Yeah, these games are never a solution, a clear one solution for all of them to win. We talked after the Toronto game, having more initiative, urgency first half. Let's go get our first home goal in the first half. And I'm proud of the guys to accomplish that. Disappointed with conceding that PK. I'm not sure about the call. I got to look at it with more detail, but Houston's a good team. Look, they've won 2 in a row at home. They've got a midfield trio that's, I would say, up there with the best in the league. And they can put passes together and hurt you and break lines and create. So we knew that defensively we wanted pressure on the ball, but we knew we were going to have to recover centrally. Press was broken, and that's a collective effort. Look, at second half we pushed. But they pushed, and we were able to earn our PK. And I know you're saying maybe not creating the run of play, but we did have a good expected goals. I think it was almost 3 expected goals, which is maybe the highest expected goals we've had in the season. I know that includes the PKs. I understand that. But we did create the PKs, and that's part of it. So have to be happy with creation. Volume of getting shots and crosses in the box continues to be positive, and we put a bit more on the frame tonight. And I think that's why it bounced our way. But credit to Houston, they're a good team that they battled and made it difficult. And we had moments where we had to suffer and get behind the ball and defend, especially there at the end. So proud of our group. We'll grab it. Very important 3 points at home. And now we got to rest and recover and go play a very difficult Red Bull team away.
Next up, Jamon Moore.
Unmuted.
Hi, Luchi.
Apologies, Alex. And regarding Mito, yeah, great to have him back from national team duty, helping in terms of creativity between the lines and accelerating the attack. Whether he gets the end product or not, look, I care more about his intentions, his ideas, why and how he does things. And I think over time, it can bounce his way, get the assist, get the goal. But I'm happy with his return back to the team.
Thank you, Luchi. Go ahead, Jamon.
Hey, Luchi, maybe the reason we can talk so much about the offensive execution is because the defense is really doing its job. There's been a player that I think has been unheralded, but is silently doing a very good job for you, and that's Paul Marie. Obviously you've got difficult decisions to make in terms of Trauco, Acapo, and Marie, and even Tommy Thompson in these games. But he's silently putting together a very solid season, maybe one of your more consistent game-to-game performers. You talk a little bit about what you think is making him become the player that he is for a guy who's a little bit smaller than other players around him. He seems to be doing a very solid job defensively. Thank you.
Yeah, Paul had a preseason where he was open to learning, taking on ideas and video. We created objectives with him in terms of reading pressure on the ball, defending depth and behind diagonals, shifting on the weak side and defending the box crosses, and taking those things personal, right? Like to be the best defender he can be. He naturally has a very good technique. He can build up. He can attack. He can break lines, dribbling, passing. So he has that strength naturally. And then he's evolved into a very, effective fullback defensively and offensively. So proud of him and seeing him also show versatility, right side, left side, a great competitive attitude. Starting or not, he's been really positive and a great teammate to this team. And again, it's great to see him have another great defensive night, shutting down his side and helping this team build and attack. So whether right or left side. So happy with him and happy with his teammates too, because we have other guys that can do the job effectively as well.
Next up, Abel Anguiano.
Hi, Luchi. Thanks for taking my question and congrats on the win. Talk to us about Christian Espinoza. He's been amazing this season, and today he showed his quality yet again. How is he evolving each game as a leader on the field and in the locker room? Thank you.
Look, Christian stepped up and put 2 PKs away. It's never easy to score a second PK after the first because it ends up being that duel with the keeper. But he showed great confidence to step up and to put it away. And he trains those. He trains that. He's always prepared in training. He's putting high level work rate, concentration, great mentality. Doesn't show a lot of emotion. Just wants to work and stay in the moment. And he shows that weekly in training. And so we're not surprised by his opportunity. Him grabbing opportunities and showing a performance like tonight on the field. And he's a great example to our team. All ages and experiences. So, happy and proud for Christian, very valuable for the club and hopefully for seasons to come, and him helping us reach our potential as a team as we continue to compete this season. Christian is a player that will obviously put in maximum effort, but has also technique, quality, creativity, creating shots, setting up and combining to set up crosses with his fullback, with his interior players, and always with a smile on his face. And so it's just a big pleasure to coach him, and we want to continue to support him so he can keep helping us perform.
Take a couple more questions with a second one from Jamon Moore.
Hey, Luchi, when Jonah Mensah is on a yellow early in the game and then definitely gets a foul that, it's definitely his final warning. Is there a discussion with you and the assistants about subbing him at that point? Or is, he just such a veteran at this point, he gets that trust every time? What's the type of conversation about a potential sub there?
Yeah, I want to say that foul, I thought it was first or second foul. I thought it was a little early for that yellow card, but it happened. And yeah, definitely a conversation at half and during the second half, but never did we feel he made that one tackle second half, but to me, that definitely was not a second yellow. So he was pretty measured. He's got a lot of experience. He's composed, and he didn't show us a concern to have to change, but we definitely were thinking about it and ready to think of ideas if we needed to, but thankfully we didn't need to.
Let's also take a second one from Alex Morgan.
Hey, Luchi, thanks for taking another one. I'm curious about your thoughts on Jeremy Abobasi. He has been able to find the back of the net in the last few games, but had a couple looks tonight from the top of the box. What are the conversations that you've been having with him about what you're looking for? Areas where you think he can improve and what he's been doing well.
Jeremy's doing really well. I know the score sheet, he's not going to be satisfied and if he's not scoring goals, and that's his high standards and high expectations of himself and what he does really well. So to me, I'm not worried about that because I know with continued great mentality that he has in training and willingness to work for his team and implement our setup for each game. I feel him 100% bought in and really positive about how we're working and how he can be impactful and his team can be his team compete. So, he had some better looks today that almost won there in the box that goes in, and credit to Steve Clark on the save, or the scramble, but I'm not worried. J-Bo is going to continue to have the right intentions, occupy the right spaces in the box, help us in our hold-up play and movement between lines to link, and he's going to score sooner or later. And if it comes in waves, it comes in waves. It comes in streaks. That's just a product of what I believe he has, which is a great mentality to help this team. So, yeah, look, every week we connect and we talk about other ideas, how we can be more effective. Offensively, he leads our press. He's doing a great job leading our press with cues, with triggers, and putting a lot of sacrifice there. And we keep him in a central high position as well that allows him in transition to be dangerous. So, he also showed versatility. We played 4-4-2 for a game and a half, and his role was slightly different, and he took it on like a great teammate. So, I'm confident he keeps showing what he's showing. It's going to bounce his way, and he's going to score goals.
And one final question in Spanish by Paula Maruro.
Muy buenas noches, felicitaciones por el triunfo. En general, ¿cómo el equipo manejó el proceso de tomar las decisiones en el transcurso del juego? Y la otra pregunta, hablemos de la mentalidad y la responsabilidad de Cristian para ejecutar esos penales. Muchas gracias.
Sí, el partido, para empezar, siempre es un producto de cómo vimos la semana, cómo vemos el oponente, en cómo podemos ser eficaces en nuestro ataque, en salir de la presión del oponente y atacarlos, ¿no? Y cómo podemos defender y tener el bloque compacto para tener momentos de presión. Y esas cosas se ve en la semana, se ve contra el oponente en video, en análisis y se coordina con el staff. Y durante el partido siempre es ver momento a momento, ¿no? Que necesita. No es para hacer muchos cambios el primer tiempo, no, realmente no se puede. Más que nada es pensar en la mitad de tiempo, el segundo tiempo, qué recambios, qué ajustes podemos hacer con cambios o tácticamente hablarlos y hacer que ellos entiendan cómo podemos adaptar, ¿no? Al final del juego jugamos 5-4-1 cuando Jamiro Monteiro tuve un calambre y es algo de formación que vimos que nos va a ayudar a defender el área. Y bueno, cumplieron el objetivo, ¿no? Los chicos. Y sobre Christian, mira, Christian estaba diciendo en inglés, sí, tiene una mentalidad muy fuerte, tiene mucha confianza para meter un segundo penal contra el mismo arquero, el mismo juego, no es fácil, pero enseña su confianza, su mentalidad, y para mí es producto de lo que él siempre trae todos los días en el entreno. En el entreno siempre mentalidad de competir, de poner mucho esfuerzo, de hacer cosas con intensidad y sin emoción. Todo es mentalidad de el próximo momento, atacar el próximo momento, tratar de su mejor en el próximo momento, y muy orgulloso de él, y él va a seguir, si él sigue así, y sí lo va a hacer, el equipo va a ser el beneficio de eso, ¿no?
All right, thank you, Luchi, and thank you everyone for your questions. We'll be bringing midfielder Jamiro Monteiro in a couple minutes.
Good night, thank you.
Okay, well, we have quite a bit to talk about there, Jamon and Alex. I do want to direct our viewers to check out quakesepicenter.com. If you haven't done that already, we have tons of content there, articles from our writers, Jamon and Alex included, and we have our salary spreadsheet, which has all the budgeting and everything on there, which is written by Colin Etnier. There's a lot of great information about who our current DPs are, what the cap space looks like. And yes, as Alex just pointed out, right behind him, he has the Quakes Epicenter scarf, which you could find at the Quakes Epicenter store. So make sure you check out quakesepicenter.com, and you can follow us on social media at Quakes Epicenter on Twitter and Instagram. And we'll talk a little bit about our Patreon at the end of the show as well. So make sure you hang tight for that. Okay, let's start off with Alex. You asked about Jeremy Ebobisse. Now, when you had first brought him up at the beginning of the show, you had kind of mentioned that he looked a little bit lost out there. Luchi, on the other hand, had some different feelings about that. And he mentioned his intent to score, how he's continuing to do that, and how he's continuing to find opportunities. I was just going to ask you, how do you respond to that? What do you think about what Luchi had to say about Jeremy Ebobisse and how you saw the game when you initially spoke about his performance at the beginning of the show?
Well, these press conferences are an interesting spectacle now, because the dynamic has changed a little bit. I don't know if our audience has noticed this, but I feel like Luchi is now preempting all of our talking points on the show. This is like the third consecutive match in which, in the post-match press conference, he has brought up the XG and gone through.
And he was accurate.
A
exactly.
little mini discussion about the XG, which is usually Jamon Moore territory. So he's a
Luchi has studied at the feet of Greg. Greg is an XG guy. So
yeah.
Greg
Berhalter, USMNT coach for folks who aren't familiar.
He's learned. Former, yes.
Yeah, former.
No longer do I feel like I'm entering the post-match press conference with some special insight. Luchi's
I brought up progressive passes about Jackson Ewell this week. He came back with talking about progressive carries, so he knows what's up.
He's ready to fire back.
Yeah.
Look, I do think that Jeremy Ebobisse has looked a little more disconnected in the last few games, and I think that's reflected in his.
Do you think that's
he
him?
hasn't scored?
You think that's him, or do you think
Jamie.
that's the team? Okay.
I don't think that's entirely him. I think that he's getting in the right spaces at the right times, and they're not really finding him. You had, I think, a total of 3 crosses today, mostly from the right side, Carlos Acapo, but also Cade Cowell, where I think Jeremy Ebobisse is wide open in the 6-yard box, waiting for a tap in. And the service hasn't been there for him from the wide areas. Even Christian Espinosa's service wasn't as strong today. He had a couple good crosses, but not to Jeremy Ebobisse's feet. So I think that's one of the reasons. I think if one of those crosses is connected, we're having a different conversation. We're saying Jeremy Ebobisse is putting the ball in the back of the net. He's a poacher. He's a finisher. And I think that Luchi Gonzalez is right in that with more volume crosses, that'll happen in the next few games. So I'm not necessarily worried about that. I think there's a little more ambiguity in the sort of the build up through the play through the middle. I think that too often the Quakes are finding him with his back to goal, and his touch has let him down too many times. I don't think he plays the best with his back to goal. I don't think his hold-up play has been as strong as I would like. He's great at darting in between the lines and making runs in behind the box, but his touch has just let him down too often when he's receiving the ball with his back to goal. I don't think that's the place where he plays best, but that's the place where he's getting the ball the most. And so maybe that's an issue with the way that his teammates are connecting with him and when he's finding that space. So there's something in the play through the middle that's not quite clicking yet. And I'm unsure exactly how to diagnose this. Maybe Jamon can help on that front.
Yeah, Jamon, I was going to ask you about that because from what I'm seeing, there have been opportunities. We've seen Cade Cowell, we've seen Christian Espinoza firing in some crosses from the flanks. And we have seen, as Alex mentioned, some balls coming in and what would be for a traditional 9, something they would feast upon, right? They would use their body, hold up the play, find a pass, or turn and quickly shoot, which we've seen Jabo do before. So are you in agreement here with Alex, Jamon, or is there something else to it?
So I personally have certain preferences about 9s that I want to make sure that I'm not projecting onto the way that Luchi wants to play his 9s. So in my opinion, if you are going to play a lot of the types of cutbacks, balls in behind that the Quakes try to do, and let's reflect back on a couple situations. So we mentioned Cade Cowell. He put in probably the 2 most dangerous balls across the box tonight. The first one was in the first half where he was coming in from the left. That ball went across. It touched 2 Quakes and 2 Houston players at the same time. And kind of, my preference in those situations is that ball doesn't go into the 6. It goes back toward the dot between the 6 and the penalty dot, because that's where cutbacks are most successful. So what I would like to see Abobasi do is actually make the runs to pull defenders away and open up space. And I would like somebody trailing there to be able to get there. Now, Abobasi potentially is available to drop off. As soon as he makes that run to the back post, if a defender pulls with him, I would also want him to drop back so that he has the ability to be there for a rebound, because a lot of those shots can get blocked. And sometimes there's deflections and other things. So I don't want him like staying on the post. I want him running to the post, making that run, and then deciding, when to peel off because an opportunity could exist. So if we go to the other Cade situation, I think he did that. My recollection is there was a run like that. There was nobody trailing. And Cade played the ball where there should have been a trailer. And Jamiro and Cade and Jackson were like nowhere to be found. They were like 25 yards behind the play. So in neither situation is ideal from my perspective, but I don't necessarily fault Jeremy for that, because he may have been making a run. It's the camera angle. I'm not seeing his run because the camera's on Cade. So he may be making the run that I would like him to make. I can't tell. So again, I don't want to project what I think he should be doing onto what Luchi thinks he should be doing, but that's my particular preference.
Look,
and so what Luchi's looking at is he where I think he should be in those situations? And I think he's saying he's where he should be. It doesn't necessarily mean he's the target.
I think the other thing is the Quakes have a really solid penalty taker in Christian Espinoza, who's converted all his penalties this season and is solid from the spot and not going to be replaced on the spot anytime soon. If Jeremy Abobasi takes those 2 penalties and gets a brace, I think there's also a different perspective about where he's at and if he's meeting expectations this season. So I think you have to factor in a little more variance from the penalty situation as well. But it is a good thing for the Earthquakes that they have such a consistent spot kick taker, the most consistent that they've had since Chris Wondolowski. It's been a fairly easy transition from Chris Wondolowski, one legendary spot kick taker, to Christian Espinoza, who's converted everything that's been in front of him with clinicality and completely unfazed. I mean, he looks so dialed in when he's lined up in front of the ball. there's never really any doubt. So the fact that the Quakes have had such a consistent spot kick taker is, one of the reasons that they can, have games like this where they can get by on their set piece conversion, because that's where a lot of their goals have been coming from.
All right, we're now
Absolutely,
joined by
absolutely
midfielder
with that,
Jamiro
man.
Monteiro. So let's begin with the question from Jamon Moore. Jamon, can you hear us?
No internet?
Let's come back to you.
Sorry,
Jamon.
I can hear you now.
All right, go ahead, Jamon.
Sorry about that. I needed a few seconds there. Hey, Jamiro, welcome back. Obviously, you had a game where you had a red card, didn't get to play, and then you had to immediately go out on international duty. How did you feel tonight? Looked like you were cramping a little bit late in the game, but overall, how are you feeling right now? And how did you feel that you did coming back into the lineup?
First, I'm really happy to be back and get back and get 3 points. Yeah, I was cramping. I came back and I had 2 days. I was flying 2 days, and I think these days I was a little bit tired, so that's why I think I was cramping today also. So yeah, but I feel great. I'm happy. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be back and getting 3 points.
Next question, Abel Anguiano.
Hi, Jamiro. Thanks for taking the time to answer my question. How confident do you feel going into the next away game? I know that the PayPal Park has been a fortress. You guys are unbeaten in the season, but it's been a different story away from home. But considering that you guys got a good result in this game, how is your confidence going into the next game? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really confident. I think everybody's really confident. We have a great team, great coach, and we are really confident. And every game we try to give everything we have. I hope we continue like this and keep this line. And yeah, for next week.
Hi, Jamiro. Thanks for joining us. It's good to speak to you tonight. I want to ask about the chance creation. It seems like you're getting the ball in wide areas really well and getting lots of cutbacks. But maybe the volume of chances coming through the middle through Jeremy Abobasi isn't as high as we've seen in the past. I'm curious what you think you're doing well in terms of distribution and passing in the final third, and where you think you can continue to improve.
For me, to where I can get better is to be more in the 16. But I try to look for Jaba also, but they really focus a lot on him. Like when he get the ball, you already have 3-4 men behind him or for him. So we just try to look for the spaces and get in the 16. And sometimes difficult because a lot of players will be in the 16. But I think today we didn't create a lot of chances, but the most important thing is we gotta win, and next week again.
Take a couple more second questions. Let's go back to Jamon Moore.
Hey, Jamiro. So along with these wins comes some pretty good defensive performances, for the team as well. And again, you were out for one of them due to the red card. But, what strikes you as being so different about the team this year and the defensive performances that you've been getting compared to last year when the team gave up a lot of goals? Feels like a lot of those issues have been addressed, maybe with some of the change to the defensive scheme. But, what else is there just besides the scheme changes? Thank you.
Yeah, we focus a lot of on defending. Like you said, last year we get a lot of goals against us. For now, we're doing good, and moments when we losing balls in the midfield or forward, we just try to be fast as possible together and make it small. So we make it difficult for the other team. And yeah, I hope we continue like this and don't give goals against us.
And one final one from Alex Morgan.
Hi, Jamiro. Thanks for taking another question. I want to ask about the halftime talk that you had and what changes you made going into the second half. It felt like the second half was a lot more open. There was a lot more space in the midfield and it was a lot more stretched out. And that's not something we've really seen a ton in the past 5 games. In the past 5 games, it feels more like the team gets solid and more control in the second half, whereas it felt a little bit different tonight. I'm curious what changes you guys were looking to make and how you think that worked out.
I didn't think we made a change or something. I think there was moment we was maybe losing the ball in the middle or losing ball on the not on the right moment, and I think we was winning 2-1 and they try to score and they would make more risk, and we also like when they lose ball we try to go like fast as possible forward, but sometimes it didn't help, and that's why I think it looks like the game was really open because we was losing balls on not good moments.
All right, thank you, Jamir, and thank you everyone for your questions. Good night.
All right. Well, we got to hear from Jamiro Monteiro, and it sounds like he's glad to be back with the team. Jamon, I'm going to go over to you first. Just kind of your general thoughts about some of the things we heard from Jamiro getting back with the team and his feelings about the way things are going for the Earthquakes.
Yeah, I think I actually want to kind of hit on Alex's last question and his response there too, because it's something I definitely noticed as well. And one of the things that I think is a kind of a trait in MLS at times is how stretched sometimes that the games get as the game goes on. So when you get in the second half, you start to see these situations where as players begin to tire, they start to make more poor decisions. It's not that there's not poor decisions early in the games too, but everyone's at full capacity to be able to recover in those situations. One of the things that I believe is significantly better about this team is the way that they handle those bad moments in the Almeida era, and then still in Cowell's time last season. This team was giving up a lot of 1v1 transitions. It would take a couple different passes and it's a jailbreak, right? And the other team is off to the races. How many times has that happened this year? Maybe once or twice, where it felt like there's situations where I'm going, oh boy, and my son knows because he's sitting on the couch with me watching this, and I'm going, oh, that's a bad place to give that ball up. But they're recovering for the most part in most situations. I'm not saying it's perfect because no team is perfect about this. Neither side was perfect tonight. And sometimes it's just bad decision making that bails you out, or a bad shot or a bad decision that bails you out. But the structure, even when it's stretched, there's still more structure than there was last year. And the back line is still better positioned. And tonight it was Michael Baldissimo and not Carlos Gruezo. And so I think that factors into it a little bit as well, because whenever Jamiro or Ewell would make a bad pass, and they did because they were asked to distribute a lot tonight, a lot of everything was going through the two of them. And whenever they would make a bad pass, there was structured for the most part to be able to handle the transitions. And if nothing else, you can say it's better. You might not say it's perfect, but you can say it's better.
Look, Jamon, the difference is that you have Jonathan Mensah and Rodriguez at center back, and they're cleaning up everything that's coming their way. And
but they're also in the right positions, and I think that's important.
Exactly. And the one game where that didn't happen, the one game I think that probably skews the statistic. You said there was 1 or 2 of those poor giveaways this season. I think there was probably at least 3 or 4 in the St. Louis City game alone. And I think game skews the statistics because St. Louis creates those chances, creates those turnovers, and because the Quakes didn't have Carlos Gruezo, didn't have Rodriguez for most of that game. And so they didn't have those stop gaps that have been there. This game, there were those giveaways. They were well set up to handle them. But the thing that surprised me was just the lack of control in the second half, because the trend that we've seen so far this season is that the Earthquakes have been much stronger in the second half. I think every single game this season, they have improved throughout the course of that game. We have given Luchi Gonzalez a lot of credit for the halftime adjustments that he's been able to make, and the second half subs that he's been able to make to increase their control on the game through the course of the 90 minutes. Tonight was, I think, bucked that trend a little bit. We saw a second half that was much more wide open, much more giveaways. They didn't have the control that they had in the first half. There was a lot more space in the final third. So it was an atypical Luchi Gonzalez game in that way, I think. And look, I think you've got to give Houston credit for putting the Quakes in that situation, because they were able to put the Quakes on the back foot in times in the second half and go toe-to-toe in that second half with them. So I think you have to give Houston credit there as well. And I think that eventually Luchi Gonzalez probably did respond. I thought that the Judson substitution gave San Jose a little bit more calm and composure in the midfield. And that's good. This was I think probably the best performance we've seen from Judson in a long time. You know, it finally feels
although he
like
did create the foul at the end there.
No, that was a Rodriguez tackle, I think.
No,
I think that was
Judson.
No, that was
it
Judson. Actually,
definitely Judson.
Alex, it sounds your point seems a little bit contradictory here, because you're saying on the one hand that the Quakes had the play was a lot more open, or maybe you can clarify for me. The play was a lot more open in the second half, and yet the Judson sub happened around the 60th minute, and I was just thinking, wow, the complexion of the game, like the way that the Quakes were defending, especially as they were trying to win balls in the midfield, really changed when Judson came on versus when Baldissimo was in there. So if you could just kind of clarify what you mean here when you say that they looked a little more composed when Judson came on.
Look, I'm having trouble making sense of the second half as well, just because it's so atypical. It's not something we've seen before. I thought the first 15 minutes of the second half, there were giveaways, there was lots of space, and there was danger. And when Judson came on, he helped stop some of that. There was more composure. There were fewer giveaways. But I think there was still a general lack of structure that has been atypical of a Luchi Gonzalez side. I don't know. Does that ring true to you?
That makes a little more sense. And I think if you were to look at the touches and where Jackson Yule was particularly, like, I think his play exemplifies that, because I was just thinking about Jackson Yule and his performance in this match. And Jamon, maybe you can kind of answer this a little bit. Yule was, like, if you look at the heat map and if you kind of look at his positioning throughout, he was kind of the tracking back, making defensive plays, and then at times there was one moment in which he was pushing forward with a counterattack, right? We saw Yule up on the front line, especially in the second half. We saw him playing a little bit more of that role. So, what do you think here? Jackson Yule combining with Baldissimo, combining with Judson, what are you seeing from his play throughout the match?
I've been spending a lot of time kind of watching Jackson Yule this year, because I think he's a really important piece in what's changing about the Quakes. I mentioned the fact that I had asked Luchi about his progressive passing. It's up, and I want to write about this for Quakes Epicenter, so I don't want to talk too much about it, but it's up again from what it was, and I'll be interested to see how the stats come in tonight. The other thing that Luchi mentioned, and I noticed this too, is that they also are asking him to progress the ball when there's space available, what I call progressive carries, which is measured slightly different from progressive passes. And I'll try to use it and again, explain it when I write the article. But, it's interesting that Luchi is kind of, trying to get a bit of the Jackson Yule that we really enjoyed when he was a rookie, and even in his sophomore season, when now he was asked to sit deeper, sitting beside Judson, spraying balls around. We love those long diagonals, those, kind of, over the top, type kicks where, he slams it off the turf and bounces it forward. There's just, some interesting, they're kind of like volleys, but not shots. There's this creativity that he's got in his game. And when he gets forward, that type of creativity has to change because he's working with less space. And so what's important, and Luchi addressed this a bit in terms of like what he's asking, Jackson to do has to change, because the space that he's actually working with now is much more compressed. and how he needs to be able to press the ball is a bit different depending upon the phase of the game. So one of the things that Luchi asks is that either Jackson or Monteiro track back. Either one of them have to be able to kind of track back and support working the ball back up the pitch. Sometimes it can be either one of them, but usually one goes a little bit more central, one drops in a little bit more, and then they're going to support Gruezo, Baldissimo, Judson, whomever's back there. And that's where a lot of those progressive passes are going to come from. But then he has to switch. As he gets, forward, he has to switch into a different mode of trying to be able to break down the lines. And so it's asking a lot of Jackson. I think he's doing a decent job of it. I think Luchi is overall happy with what he's seeing from Jackson in terms of his interpretation of what Lucci's asking him to do. And I think everyone thinks it's going to need to take a little bit more time for Jackson to get fully comfortable in the role.
And the other switch that he needs to turn, he needs to take shots from the top of the box. There's too often where he's got the ball teed up to him 20 yards out. In that position, I am certain Christian Espinosa would rip it. I'm certain that other players in Major League Soccer, Klaus, would rip it in that situation. I think Jackson Ewell in practice should be every day taking 5 to 10 bouncing balls at the top of the box and just ripping them on target, because
he needs to shoot.
He gets in those situations and isn't decisive enough, and too often takes a touch, gets the ball caught under his feet, and then sprays it out wide to Christian Espinosa, and the opportunity is gone. So he needs to be more decisive. And if he does that, he had the greatest opportunity from open play for the Earthquakes this season. He wasn't able quite to get his feet sorted out. So those are the situations where I think he just needs to be a little more clinical and be immediately thinking. His first thought in those situations should be, I'm going to shoot it. Because Jackson Ewell is not a guy whose first thought has ever been, I'm going to shoot it. His first thought has always been, how can I distribute the ball and get it out wide and get it into different spaces? And that works so well in the middle of the field in the defensive third. But in the final third, he needs to be more clinical. He needs to be thinking, I'm going to put every single ball on target, because the Earthquakes get the ball in zone 14 a lot. They get the ball right on the top of the box a lot, and they haven't been ripping enough shots. I don't think Jeremy Abobasi has. I don't think Cade Cowell has. I don't think any of them have. I think Christian Espinosa has been the only one who's been able and willing to take shots from the top of the box. And I think more of the others need to as well.
Yeah.
Let me Alex.
I want to follow up on that a little bit, because, Alex is right. And last year, it's easy to forget, Jackson scored 5 goals. And the type of shot that he took tonight that he definitely, that he scuffed, was the type of goal that he got last year. So I think, he's been focused on this other parts of his game, but he can't give up the shooting. There has to be danger in zone 14. There has to be danger at the top of the box. They not only have to be able to test the back line with a through ball type pass, they need to be able to take the shots so the defense will step to them to be able to open space for that through ball. So, I think I completely agree. Jackson needs to take more shots. He needs to challenge defenses early to think that he's a threat, so that other space will open up. Oscar says,
and that's
Alex,
exactly right.
I was actually going to mention here, because I wanted to double down on what you had said, because this was actually the point I was going to make. My one analytical contribution at the end of the show here was going to be that exactly from zone 14, and the hesitation to take shots from that area. But you're right. It's not just Jackson Ewell. It's Christian Espinosa is one of the few players that we're seeing consistently taking shots from outside the box. But the other, we're seeing Jamiro Monteiro, we're seeing Jackson Ewell, we're seeing the other guys on, who are playing up on the front line, not taking those shots. And that we see a lot of passing within the 18-yard box, right? We're seeing a lot of that happening there, and guys are losing the ball at their feet and not just taking the shot, right? So anyway, you were going to say.
And if he establishes himself as a danger, as a threat with that shot, Jamon's exactly right. That's going to create more space for Christian Espinosa out wide. That's going to create more space for who? Jeremy Abobasi. If you're worried about his chance creation through the middle, that's exactly the type of opportunity where they can get him the ball in the middle. If the ball is cut back to Jackson Ewell, top of the box, if their center back step, a quick ball in behind for Jeremy Abobasi.
Yep, and that's how you break the line, right? That's what they're always looking for.
They can't go back to being dumb about long shots, though. So people say, we need to shoot long shots. Just careful. You need to shoot shots that are going to create the right element of danger. If you're just like wildly shooting shots when you get close to the goal,
So what you're saying is don't let Judson
creating
shoot.
turnovers. Don't let Judson shoot.
Jamon,
That's rule number one. But no, when you get to the front of zone 14, you need to get guys to step to you. And if they don't think you're a shooting threat, they're just going to sit. And a lot of times that's exactly what Houston did tonight.
I agree with you in every aspect except one, and that is I am perfectly willing to let Paul Marie take dumb shots. I love seeing Paul Marie take dumb shots.
He only
occasionally
scores bangers,
puts them
right?
in the
We've
back of
said
the net.
He
Paul Marie
scores
only
bangers.
scores bangers, and he's perfectly allowed to try bangers.
Paul Marie is allowed. Judson is not. Those are your two rules. Just keep those rules and you're okay.
And we want to see more from Jackson Ewell, right? Okay.
I want to see Judson get a goal someday because I'm going to celebrate a Judson
Does he have
goal.
one? He does, I think. Didn't he score an MLS?
I mean, maybe he did, but I don't know if it
somewhere.
was from outside the box.
Somebody go check that.
Stevenson could do it for the old Earthquakes back in the day. Judson can do it for this version of the Earthquakes. It's just a matter of time. So why don't we move to the last segment of the show, you guys, because we're running a little long in the tooth. Jamon, Alex, you just raised your
single
finger.
goal.
You want to go first?
A single goal. 2019, his first season in San Jose. According to the stats, he has a single goal. I'd love if there's somebody in the chat who can track that one down.
Cool.
All right, I'll look up if no one else is able to. I'll try to find it this week. Because
all right, Jamon Moore.
It had to have been So when did you say it happened, Alex? 2019.
His first season in MLS, 2019.
Probably off of a set piece, probably a header off of a set piece, something like that, or just a garbage ball in front. Probably was not a long distance banger. Yeah, Rodriguez. Oh my goodness, Rodriguez tonight. I mean, the dude didn't have bad luck. He'd have no luck at all. It's just I don't know.
So close.
Yeah, there has been 4 or 5 late set piece goals.
He's going to get one.
Opportunity.
I feel like Rodriguez is going to get one.
It's a matter of time.
It might be like when he gets one, he's going to get like 3 because he's going to get like so confident. He's just going to start like.
Rodriguez has been one of their most dangerous players in the final third.
It's true.
At least from open play in the last
season. He's exciting to watch.
And Mensah actually had the best like wind-up shot tonight.
He did.
The center backs, we have someone I think in the chat called them. We have center attacking backs.
Okay.
So cabs.
I like that.
Cams, right? So yeah, we have center attacking backs.
Cabs. Love that. All right, Jamon. Final thoughts.
Hey, look, you know what? A win's a win. So, let's take a deep breath. It wasn't necessarily the best win, but it's you're going to have to win a few of these kinds of games, particularly when you're at home. It's going to hurt when you don't get some of those on the road. So let's think about where the Quakes are at right now. 4 home games, only 2 away games. Easy to feel good about being 5th in the table, but we need to see some road results. And guess who they go face next? Alex?
New York Red Bulls.
Yes. So what do we know about the New York Red Bulls, Alex?
We know that they kicked San Jose's butts in preseason pretty comprehensively.
And why do they kick San Jose's butts pretty comprehensively in preseason, Alex? And also St. Louis City, similar team.
They press high up the field and they force turnovers. And I like this Socratic dialogue, this back and forth that we're having.
Yes, because this is a real test. If the Quakes can go on the road and be able to get a point, we're seeing some steps forward. And if they get 3 points, I mean, fantastic, right? They're going to actually move, into the top four in the West. But let's not look a gift horse in the mouth. In MLS, you got to win at least half of your home games. You got to, draw another and only lose 25% or less. And right now, mission accomplished. Through the first 4 games, the Quakes have won 3, drawn 1. If you said before the season, would you take 10 points out of your first 12 available home points? You would have said, heck yeah, absolutely, all day long and every day, right? Yep. So right now, good. It's the right start to the season overall. It was tough to lose in Atlanta the way they did. It was not good to lose to St. Louis the way they did, but hey, St. Louis went into RSL and blew them out 4-0. So maybe it's just St. Louis. Obviously, they finally lost today, but they were due to lose. So now we see. A real test, I think, is going to be the Red Bulls having to play them again, and on the backs of what happened in St. Louis, playing a very similar style, a team that gave them trouble and should give them trouble, and it'll be interesting to see how they adjust to that. Now the Quakes have to go on the road, start getting some results on the road. They don't have to win every game, but they need to get some points. So let's see what happens next, because I think the true test of the season is just now starting.
The true test, Alex, going into New York, that is a team that has only 6 points in 6 matches. I mean, what do you think? Are you in agreement with Jamon here? What are your last thoughts as we finish up here in the match against Houston and head into the match against the New York Red Bulls on the road?
Look, I think that the Red Bulls game is going to be one of their toughest outings this season. I think it's up there with the St. Louis game, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a repeat of the St. Louis game, because that's what the Red Bulls did to the Earthquakes in preseason. Jamon and I were there in Coachella Valley Invitational, thanks to the support of all of our wonderful patrons. And the Red Bulls put San Jose under a ton of pressure, created high turnovers. San Jose did not look comfortable billing the ball out of the back. And they're going to do that again. They're going to do that with a lot more energy because they're at home and the Earthquakes have to travel all the way across the country and with the home support behind them. So it's going to be an incredibly difficult game for San Jose. And if they can get out of there with a draw, that's going to be important. And the fact that they're going to New York and facing such a tough team is why this victory is so important. In MLS, we always say if you can win at home, win out at home, it doesn't matter what happens on the road. That'll be good enough to make you get into the playoffs. And that's what San Jose have done so far this season. You have, I think, a little bit of a stumbling block last weekend against Toronto, where they didn't have a strong performance. But they're able to stay undefeated at home and I think right size some of that and regain a little bit of momentum, regain their footing with a victory tonight. And so that was really important. And it doesn't matter, as Jamon says, how it comes. 2 penalty conversions tonight was good enough. And the Quakes, now we know, are well prepared to go into a penalty shootout if the occasion arises in the MLS playoffs. They've certainly had enough practice tonight. We saw Jamiro Monteiro return in the middle. And with Jamiro Monteiro back in the midfield, I have a lot more optimism about this offense's ability to create chances. And I think that we'll continue to be dangerous going forward. So a lot of the concerns that we had last weekend, I think were fixed this weekend. And hopefully we'll be continuing going forward. We saw some surprising sartorial changes as well. I want to circle back to that because we promised we would at the end of the show. Benji Kikanovic with the new platinum blonde hair. I'm trying to place it somewhere in between Ellen DeGeneres and Justin Bieber. I think he envisions himself more on the Justin Bieber side of that spectrum. But I'm curious what the chat has to say about that one. And we'll leave it with that and see everyone next weekend.
Oh no, Alex. That's so bad. Look,
once you see it, you can't unsee it, Phil.
I know. It's very silver white, I will say that. So look, one thing that I'm thinking about, and here's a counterpoint to some of the thoughts that you shared about the upcoming match against the New York Red Bulls, is with Baldissimo being in the midfield, and I think we saw this a little bit from Grueso as he started to kind of get settled in with this team before the injury, is that these are guys who are working pretty effectively in tight spaces. And I'm wondering if, going up against the Red Bulls, if this is a change that we're going to see and if they can effectively move the ball around the pitch when the New York Red Bulls are pressing. So that's the one thing that I really wanted to consider going into this match. We did see Baldissimo both play well in recovery, and he is able to get rid of the ball very quickly when he is being pressed. So something to keep in mind. I think that's a positive going into this match against the Red Bulls. The question remains, though, where the goal is going to come from, because they are having difficulty scoring from the run of play. So it's not going to be enough to, deal with the press. They're actually going to have to create chances and put the ball into the back of the net. So that's something that I'm really going to be looking at going into the match against the New York Red Bulls. Now, of course, like every show, I do want to refer everybody to quakesepicenter.com once again. And the one thing I kind of alluded to a little bit but didn't quite get into was the Patreon. And Alex, you just referenced it. One of the ways that we're able to continue covering this team, the San Jose Earthquakes, is through the funds that we receive through the Patreon from our patrons. So we can do things like cover the matches in, as you mentioned, the Coachella Valley for preseason. And so I would like to suggest to everyone to check out our Patreon. For $2 a month, you can get early access to our articles and some of the content that we produce on quakesepicenter.com. And if you're willing to pitch in at least $5 a month, then you will get access to our Patreon Slack, where you can have wonderful discussions with some of the folks who are currently here with us right now on YouTube, and many of our other subscribers who like to talk about the Quakes when they're not actually playing on the weekend during the week. So make sure you check that out. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram. And Jamon, you had one final thought before we get out of here?
I do, because I noticed that there was a drop over here in the chat, and I'm trying to find it right now. Ben Perez, I hate you, but thank you for not spoiling anything in the chat tonight, because I haven't seen the final 2 matches. However, if you're a wrestling fan and you want to hear my takes, myself and Quakes After 90, we did a collaboration. Got together with Dom Skipper, and we went and predicted all the WrestleMania matches and what we think the storylines would be afterwards and all that kinds of stuff. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, check it out on the Quakes After 90 feed. And night 1 of WrestleMania is done. It's on Peacock. So if you want to see how well we predicted it, you can go right over there and watch and laugh at how bad of a job we did. I think we got a few right.
I was not previously a WrestleMania fan, but I had the chance to bond with Jamon at the Coachella Valley Invitational, and I got caught up. I got caught up on all the history that I'd missed. And honestly, sometimes it felt like tonight we watched a little bit of wrestling between Carlos Acapo and his opposition there. He get really into it, really heated. And
that must have been retaliation.
Maybe something to watch out for going forward.
That must have been retaliation for something, because why would you get in a guy's face like that? It had to have been retaliation.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what it was for, but something happened.
Yeah, there was something going on there. Well, hopefully we'll get some insight into what that was. Jamon, I haven't really watched wrestling since I think like Shawn Michaels gave Diesel the Sweet Chin music in the Royal Rumble. It's been that long. So, and I know you mentioned in a previous episode of Quakes After 90, when you're talking to Dom, that Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid, was one of your favorite wrestlers. So I thought that was really cool. But yeah, folks, go check out the episode of Quakes After 90. It's another show that I've been doing for several years now. It's in podcast form. And we get, the one big difference between what you'll get there and what you get here is it's like just having a conversation with your friends about your favorite team. And so it's a lot of fun. So go check out Quakes After 90. Dom is doing a really great job producing over there and creating content throughout the season, like the episode on WrestleMania with Jamon Moore from right here at Quakes Epicenter. So like and subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications so you can join us after every match. And we will see you next time. Have a good night.